Welcome everyone to the Ants Canada Ant Channel. On this channel, we've seen some pretty incredible stuff occurring in the lives of ants. But what I was able to shoot for this video was something I've never ever before seen. In case you haven't been following the saga of the lives within this terrarium, I, along with a ton of AC family out there, are convinced this terrarium carries a curse. Every ant colony we have tried to move in here to inhabit this terrarium we so carefully crafted with selected plants, originating creatures, and soil have either died before moving in, thought to have died inside, or escaped. In fact, some of you have suggested the ghost of the bearded dragon that died in these lands is haunting our every attempt to move in our ants. But AC family, what we find today inside this terrarium will truly blow your mind. Keep on watching until the very end. Today, we discover that these cursed lands harbor a dangerous creature that I had no idea was living secretly in this terrarium all this time. A serpent. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Ants Canada Ant Channel. Subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. Never in my life have I ever come across a terrarium that truly acted like it had a mind of its own, where all the creatures seemed like they were mere parts to a giant creature, each creature with its own function in the grand superorganism, like in this terrarium. New creatures that I never knew lived here have begun to emerge, seemingly out of nowhere. Snails, for instance, awake to greet the new day in these rich territories. I believe the snails may have come in with the ficus's original soil, and they're an interesting addition to this terrarium as they graze on mosses, plant matter, and decaying material. But more abundant than these, and perhaps the most dominant animal life form within this world, are the diminutive creatures called springtails. Springtails are little creatures that used to be considered insects, but currently are referred to by scientists as collembolans. They are omnivorous, but feed primarily on molds and fungi that grow on decaying matter. They also feed on microbes. That is how small they are. To me, they seem like flocks of sheep in the micro world. Also sharing the habitat with the springtails are these less social but cute critters, mites. The mites also feed on decaying matter and fungi and help with decomposition of material. It seems the flocks of springtails want nothing to do with the mites, and vice versa. And now bursting through the flocks comes a confident ranger, a titan. For those of you who are new to the channel, this is a worker ant of a colony of Asian marauder ants named the Titans that we recently moved into this terrarium. And boy are we happy to see it now. We initially thought they had died out sometime during the transition, but since our last video, we discovered that the colony was actually still alive and inhabiting these lands somewhere. Seeing the Titans foraging like this was a good sign that the colony was functioning as normal. If they were having a rough time moving homes before, it seemed now they have gained their second life. The The Titan travels confidently, searching for food that it can bring back to its family in a hidden burrow somewhere in this terrarium. I still haven't been able to locate where the Titans had set up home base, but I suspect that it's somewhere around this driftwood piece. So, I have begun to place food near there for the workers to feed from. But here's where I was reminded that the ants were not the dominant organisms within this terrarium. For in placing this pre-crushed baby roach onto the ground surface, it wasn't long before other terrarium inhabitants began to snatch up this opportunity for a meal. At first, this cockroach attracted springtails and various other terrestrial creatures. But then, the ground below the cockroach began to move. A Titan came by but totally was not interested in the cockroach. Several hours later, I returned to discover the cockroach half within the soil being eaten by a creature below ground. It was being eaten by an earthworm, admittedly one of my worst fears in the entire world. I didn't even know earthworms ate meat, but it seems the worms in these lands had a taste for dying insects. And surprisingly, so did the snails. Like a slimy scavenger, a snail came to finish off the remains which the earthworm left behind. Although they may seem repulsive, earthworms who belong to the class Oligochaeta play a major role in the conversion of large pieces of organic matter into rich humus, thus providing soil fertility. Here, you can see a piece of leaf that a worm has dragged into its burrow. This will then decay and improve soil quality. Earthworm digestion also helps convert vital minerals and nutrients into more absorbable forms for plants. Watch as this earthworm excretes waste. Each of these pieces of earthworm feces is loaded with nutrients for plants. Earthworm tunnels also enable the process of soil aeration and drainage. There's no doubt that earthworms are biologically important in this terrarium. But want to hear something cool, AC family? Earthworms do not have eyes, but you may be surprised to know that they can see light. They have specialized photosensitive cells called light cells of Hess, which help them tell if it's sunny or dark. This is essential because many of their predators are daytime creatures, and sensing quick light changes from a shadow of a predator can make the difference between life and death. Watch what happens when I move the light on this earthworm. It quickly, instinctively retreats, but doesn't go far because it can feel that it is still enclosed in its burrow. It seems all the creatures in this terrarium have achieved a sort of balance. They kind of live together and feed together, but I wasn't prepared in the least to discover that in these flourishing lands lives a creature, a monster in fact, that I have never ever seen in my life. I was awake at 2 a.m. one night and peeked into the terrarium and discovered a peculiar creature moving through the moss. At first, I thought it was a really long and thin millipede. But as I looked closer, it seemed the creature had no legs. That was odd. Perhaps it was a type of worm? Take a look. And then, that's when I saw it. The creature had a little tiny tongue flickering out of its front end as it moved about. Oh my gee! This creature was a snake! I had no idea snakes this small even existed. It was only about 2 inches long. I couldn't see a pronounced head, nor eyes, but I could see that flickering tongue, smelling the world as it navigated around. Can you believe it, guys? An actual snake was living in this terrarium. I found it really cool and assumed it was feeding off the small terrestrial insects in the terrarium, perhaps feeding on the ever-abundant springtails and mites. I watched it for a good 30 minutes before it finally disappeared in the shadows. In the morning, I decided to look it up online. Typing blind snake into Google, the very first search result that popped up was the exact snake I had seen the night before. The snake's name was Indotyphlops brahminis, commonly known as a Brahmini blind snake. A tiny non-venomous snake found mostly in Africa and Asia, but has been introduced to other parts of the world. I was surprised to learn that they also were commonly called flower pot snakes, due to the fact that they have been introduced to other parts of the world through the plant trade, living secretly in soils of flower pots. This explains how the snake got into our terrarium in the first place. It must have come in with the soil when we planted the ficus. But nothing prepared me for what I was about to read about Brahmini blind snakes that suddenly made my heart jump into my throat. Their diet consisted of larvae, eggs, and pupae of ants and termites. The snake fed on ant babies. Oh no! Though it seemed the snake had no interest in the adults, the fact that the snake ate the young of ant colonies meant that it would affect future generations from developing. And in the world of ants, workers only lived for a good month or two before dying. So the success of the colony and queen depended on the successful emergence of succeeding generations of ants. This snake, living in our terrarium, was a direct threat and predator to our titans. This was just insane! What terrible luck! And what made things even worse was how these snakes reproduced. Brahmini blind snakes reproduce through a process called parthenogenesis, which meant they were able to reproduce on their own without a partner to mate with. In fact, all specimens of Brahmini blind snakes collected have been known to be female. Turns out, all offspring that hatch from their eggs are 100% clones of their mothers and therefore are also born female. This was a nightmare because it meant that we only needed one of these snakes to start a population of them living in these lands. A population of snakes that fed on ant babies. Little did I know, the night before, the curse of this terrarium had reared its ugly, blind head. Examining the terrarium, I couldn't find the snake anywhere. I kept watch night after night after night after night, but saw no signs of the snake. I assumed the snake was nocturnal because when I had sighted it, it was in the wee hours of the night. These snakes apparently live in the nests of termites and ants, but also burrow in soil for most of its life. I guess that it came out that one time to feed. My experience with snakes is limited to the pet snakes I've owned, including this male Sonoran green tree python here, named Valentino, which I've owned for a few years now. He feeds at night, usually once every week or two. If the Brahmini snake in our terrarium is like Valentino here, I suppose we can expect for it to emerge again within 1 to 2 weeks. But I began to question, How was it able to survive so long in the terrarium? I bet when we introduced the Titans, it had a feast on some ant young. Who knows how much Titan offspring it had already fed on? Who knows how many Brahmini snakes actually existed in this terrarium by now? So many questions. Finally, after more nights of failing to spot the snake, I decided to take matters into my own hands. It was time to go into the terrarium and look for the snake myself. It was Operation Snake Hunt. I carefully took apart the decorations of the terrarium, careful not to disturb the soil too much in fear of possibly disturbing the nest of our Titans. I searched and looked carefully for any snake. Sadly, by the end of the search, I could find nothing. No snake. Perhaps it was truly buried deep in the soil somewhere. I resolved to keep my eye out every night for the snake to emerge once again, capture it, remove it from the terrarium, and save our Titans from their predator. Now here's where I need your help, AC family. If I do capture this ant baby eating snake, should I release it outside? Or should I use it as a natural form of population control? Say for the Fire Nation, or even the Golden Empire, whom we tried to biologically control at one point with pitcher plants, which ended up failing because the plants ended up establishing a pact with the ants. Or should we release the hungry Brahmini snake into one of the plant pots, in which I know the savage black crazy ants that killed our beloved Jawbreakers a few months back live? Perhaps this would be the perfect opportunity for vengeance. Take a moment now to vote here, and let your voice be heard, AC family. As for the fate of the Titans, there was really nothing left for me to do but let nature take its course within the terrarium. As ant keepers, and ultimately, keepers of wildlife, we always strive to recreate nature in its perfection so we could be witnesses of its beauty. But I realized through this entire terrarium curse saga that perhaps part of nature's beauty is in its natural chaos and its propensity to be uncontrolled, undictated, and its parameters determined by no other mind besides its own. It was at that moment that I realized that this curse, which tripped up all our plans, was in fact nature telling us who truly was in control and who was just a player in the grand scheme of things. After all, thanks to us and our collective decisions, we unknowingly made it possible for a tiny snake and all its future babies to be fed in a lush environment that was comfortable and free of its predators. It seems nature always has the last say. Alright AC family, wasn't this all just mind-blowingly crazy? If you enjoyed watching this video and want to help us keep making more, please remember to hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment to express your thoughts, and share this video with all your friends so they too can follow these epic ant stories. Oh, and of course, if you haven't yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and bell icon so you can be notified every time we upload a new video. AC Inner Colony, I've left a hidden cookie for you here if you would just like to watch extended play footage of the eerie creatures living in this terrarium. And now it's time for the AC Question of the Week. Last week we asked, name one preparation that needed to be done before moving the Dark Knights into the terrarium. Congratulations to Ant Nation, who correctly answered, putting baby powder on the tube so they can't get to the mesh. Congratulations, Ant Nation! You just won a free ebook handbook from our shop. And in this week's AC Question of the Week, we ask, name one way in which earthworms help in an ecosystem. Leave your answer in the comment section and you could win a free ant t-shirt from our shop. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And guys, we are less than 10,000 subscribers away from 1 million subs. This is crazy. Let me know what you guys want to do for our 1 million subs video. It's Ant Love forever.